Hello, hello.
Hi, Kevin Gaynor. Can you hear me?
Hey, Kevin, Sean Padian, loud and clear.
Don't know why my picture hasn't been coming up today. Am I popping up on a picture or just voice?
Just voice.
Hmm.
You should be able, on the bottom left, there should be a share video. The bottom left of the window that you're in.
Yeah, you would think.
There
I see a start video. Maybe that's it.
you go.
There we go.
That's funny. Mine's not working either. That's, aha, interesting. Carmine, yours works.
There we go.
There it is.
Hey, there he is, Mr. Carmine, Mr. Gaynor. We
How are
meet
you,
again.
sir?
Happy Friday. Happy Friday. So Kevin, Carmine, we in 2006, 2007, we filmed the season of Lexington basketball. I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, but
Yep.
I huddled with some of my best friends in childhood that were there still. And we were able to have cameras at every practice and every game. They went,
Oh my God.
they went 20-0. And what was interesting about it was the very last year of kind of Coach Ferris's long career there. Even though they'd been so successful, the town had de-emphasized sports. It had changed a lot. They had banned rooting for your team. They had banned chants the last year that we, and so we'll get into it because it's crazy.
Carl,
Yeah.
can I interrupt for 1 second just to also add that for this entire season, we had the coach mic'd up, direct audio, so everything behind the scenes as well as the action of the season.
It's a big undertaking. I will send you a little movie that we did of that season where we touch on the history. Did you, Kevin, see the Rollie interview I sent you?
I'm going to look at it this weekend.
Okay. That was 5 years ago, I think, in Jupiter, Florida. So we're going to get right into it. And we have some pictures too. I want to see if I can call them up right now, Kevin, real quick. Hold on. Oh, there's Sean. Now, Sean, he was a part of the Mecco movie. They did a movie actually on the Mecco program, Kevin, a couple years ago called On the Line.
Sure.
He also played, Sean played in the 80s for Lexington, and he can probably help us with these photos. But okay, Kevin, we had a great walkthrough last week, but let's get right into it because it's such an important, and Rollie had told us to talk to you several times in the past. What's so interesting about where you come on the graph is that you were a sophomore when Rollie came up. But before that, can you tell me a little bit, where was your dad from? Where was your mom from? I know you grew up around Hastings. When did you move to Lexington?
I moved to Lexington in fifth grade, when I was 5 years old. My dad was from Cambridge and my mother was from Arlington.
From Arlington?
Yes.
Okay. And you moved in fifth grade. And so you said sophomore year was when Rollie came. What was basketball your number one sport growing up?
Yes, I guess that's a fair, yes.
Okay.
I played soccer, I played football, played baseball.
Okay. Would you go to the basketball games as a kid?
Occasionally when I was in 8th and 9th grade, I'd go, yes.
Okay. So here it is, Carmine. So after your freshman year, you're going into your sophomore year. Doc Abel's retiring. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So because when you told
the backstory to that was the team that Doc had the prior year was exceptional. But Bailey made the tech tourney and people were a little upset by that. They ended up losing actually to Catholic Memorial, which
Ooh.
surprised me, but Catholic Memorial had just been started,
Okay,
was Class B.
right.
But I think it moved into Class A soon after that.
Yeah, it did.
And they lost, I guess it amounted to a play-in game and win the conference championship. Conference championships back in those days were an automatic bid, and then they had rules for qualifying beyond that. In my year or years, it was you had to be 15-5 or better. You had to be over 750.
Okay, and so this is was because in the 80s we did grow up like this as well, and it did recapture it a little bit in the new century, but really a sports town, right? And when we show you some of these yearbook photos from 63 and 64, you talk about the change of Rollie, and I was looking at these photos earlier, and it's like the field house is constructed, the
Right.
school is expanding, times
Right.
are really changing. So just walk us through Doc Abel. So in town there was some disappointment that the team underachieved.
Yeah, and Doc was getting older anyway, and
Yeah,
he was not. He was a roll the ball out coach. He didn't do a whole lot more than that. And I think the feeling was the town could do better than Doc. And as I said, he was getting older.
Right.
So he was forced out, I think. That's what I understand.
right. And they went out and they got Rollie in New Jersey. And so you had heard kind of that spring, you guys said, oh, we're waiting to see, and had heard they went to.
Actually, it was that summer. We heard in August that they had hired this hotshot coach from New Jersey, and nobody could pronounce his name. And Doc Abel was out, and he was in. So it happened over the summer.
Right. And so just talk to us about Rollie coming to Lexington and the sea change.
Well, I think we have to first go to the first meeting with Rollie, and as I mentioned before,
Yep.
actually 2 meetings because he had to do 2 because we're in double sessions. And a friend of mine who was in the first meeting, as he was leaving school, as the second session was coming in, and he had played at Diamond and was a good ball player, and said, "You wouldn't believe this guy. I'm certainly not going to play. I'm not coming out this year." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "He wants everything. He wants a full commitment. He expects us to be living and breathing basketball for 12 months out of the year. I'm not going to do that. I don't mind playing for, in season, but I'm not going to worry about it after that." And he said, "I'm not coming out."
Wow.
So there were other kids who made a similar decision, I think. Although I think all of the really good kids took it with a grain of salt, and those of us who were sophomores didn't know any better anyway, by and large.
Right.
We didn't know Doc Abel, and certainly most of us didn't know much about his coaching talents, abilities, how he coached or didn't coach. And when you're a kid that age, back in those days, you didn't ask those questions anyway.
Yeah.
There was a
So
lot.
what did he say though when he said he wanted it all? What was the commitment that Rollie was asking for?
Well, I'm trying to remember. He expected you to be committed to basketball 12 months out of the year. Didn't mean other sports, but he wasn't saying that. But basically, if you weren't playing something else, you better be playing basketball. And he expected you to act a certain way 12 months out of the year. He expected you not to smoke, to get good grades, to be an upstanding student and upstanding citizen. And if you didn't, and it was out of season, you got involved in something he didn't like, you were gone.
Yeah, as old school as it gets.
He was very frank, what it was he expected out of you. And that's what the speech was all about. And we were going to be very good. And everybody has to make a commitment to excellence. And if you want to do that, come on out. If you don't want to do that, don't bother. I don't need you, was kind of the speech. So.
But that first year, okay, so that's what he meant by everything. It was
Yeah.
the full composite on the court, off the court. We were saying
Exactly.
he used to say you can't. Bob used to say, and he got it from Rollie. He got so much from Rollie, but you can't fly with the eagles and walk with the turkeys.
Yeah, I could see Ferris saying that, and I could see Roller saying that.
Yeah. And so tell us because this is, so he makes the speech. A lot of the seniors, of course, their expectations, they're not ready for all this in their senior year, right?
No, I mean, that's a good question. Lead in, Carl. There was a lot of, I'm coming out, but partial buy-in.
Right.
And he started teaching volume and defense, and there was a lot of eye rolling. It took a long time for people to understand what the defense really was and what he expected the defense to be. A lot of the seniors in particular were very good basketball players, but
Right.
the idea of playing defense any more than kind of keep track of where your man was something that they weren't really willing to do or really couldn't grasp the concept that they had to do. They didn't do things like blocking out.
Yeah.
Usually there were one or two guys who, when the shot went up, ran down the other end, hoping to get an easy layup. You had a lot of that going on, which of course meant their man wasn't guarded and their man wasn't being blocked out, which drove Rollie crazy. But it caused them to get, some of the guys to get easier baskets than they would otherwise get, and they were very happy to pad their stats a little bit, and that wasn't the way Rollie thought the world of basketball should be run. So
Unlearning everything you had learned to that point.
Basically, that was it, and heavy emphasis on being in shape. I don't think Doc Abel pushed the kids that hard. I mean, I'm sure they did drills. I'm sure they ran before practice, but I doubt it was done with a great deal of intensity. And that changed. I mean, everything done in practice was done with intensity and with a purpose. I mean, Rollie scripted every practice, and the practice they weren't the same from day to day. And he would decide what we were doing, what drills. He'd go over the drills, and then we drilled. And then he'd look at his watch and, okay, 10 minutes, that's enough. Let's move on to blah, blah, blah. And we'd be off to that. But he had to spend a lot of time on just basic defense.
Yeah.
How to stand, how to move, how to keep track of your man and give offside help while you knew exactly where your man was and could close on your man immediately, because the whole defense was predicated on denying the ball to your man. That's what you were supposed to do.
Well, let me ask, did anybody quit in that first week of practice?
Not that I recall, but
He did. Tell us about the senior that was smoking cigarette and Rollie saw him.
Yeah. Jack Lennon was the best athlete from East Lexington. And Jack played 3 sports and was exceptional in all 3. A very gifted athlete. And Jackie was a bit of a tough kid and smoked. So he was sneaking a cigarette before practice, after school and before practice. Because I think school got out at 2:30 and we didn't start practicing until 3:30.
Yep.
And that was to allow after school things to occur and kids to get extra help and whatever happened. So Glennon's outside smoking and Rollie sees him, calls him into his office because no smoking was one of the requirements, and confronted Jack, and Jack said, I wasn't smoking. And Rollie knew damn well he was smoking and probably had seen him before or had suspicions. And he said, fine, I saw you. I don't like you smoking. I told you the rules and I really don't like you lying to me. And you're off the team. And his second best player on the team was basically thrown off the team.
Wow.
And there was a big uproar in the town over that. And Rollie said, no, my program, my rules, they don't abide by them. There are no exceptions.
Wow.
And that really turned a lot of heads. Everybody now really understood that Rollie really meant what Rollie said.
Yeah.
And it galvanized attention and commitment for those that were still on the team. So it was kind of a pivotal moment. I think the team.
That next practice, everybody was on the line and serious.
Yeah, and that was after the season had started. So it was so into the season, and we weren't winning every game. I can tell you the first 4, 5, 6 games. I think at most we probably split them.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of gnashing of teeth about that because
So you guys were 3-3, and this is the most money they've ever spent to bring an educator in to the sleepy town of Lexington. And at 3-3, are the voices starting to come up?
I'm assuming we were 3-3. It's possible we could have been even 2-4. The season started not well.
Yeah. East Lexington must have been like, I told you so.
There was a lot of boo birds who were starting to come out and question the hiring of Rollie and questioning the whole program. But the team.
Oh, look at this picture, Kevin. Can you see it?
Yeah, and I'm going to see Jock McDonald, who's I played forward, left side. Jock played forward, right side.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll see him in 2 weeks up in Maine.
Love it. That's great.
So
so first season, 2-4, maybe even 3-3. Had you ever worked that hard before in anything?
No, it was pretty intense. It was pretty. I bet about the only comparison would be double practices late August for football.
Yeah, hell week.
And that was, because of more than the heat was, with full uniforms on outside was pretty.
So, talk to us about Rollie driving around Lexington.
So Rollie didn't have an off-season program per se.
Yeah.
What Rollie would do is after school, he would just drive to the different places where people played after And he would just park the car close to the court and just kind of sit and look for about 10 minutes. Noted who was there, and then he'd drive away. But everybody knew he was coming by.
Yeah, and the game would pick up when he got there.
The game would pick up, but it would cause maybe some kids who otherwise wouldn't have shown up to show up.
Hmm.
There were a few hot spots where people played.
What were those hotspots?
Hastings is one of them.
Yes.
Hancock was another one. There had to have been someplace in East Lexington. I'm not sure where they played, maybe Franklin's School.
Yeah.
In that part of town. And then we actually played with Rollie. Rollie was young enough to play,
Come on.
late 20s. And
Tell us
Yeah.
about Rollie's game. We got to know. Could he go left?
Rollie was very good.
Really? Let's make some noise for Rollie being good at basketball.
He really was really good, and he was a terrific point guard in the sense that he distributed the ball very well and really got you up and down the court, at top speed. He was fun. He was fun to play with, and that would be at Hancock, and that would attract a lot of people. We might have two games going. Hancock in those days had two courts, if I recall correctly. And in addition to Rollie, there was 4 or 5 other adults there. Some of the junior high coaches would be there. Dick Robot, who was one of Rollie's assistants and played at Lexington,
Yeah.
Mike there. Bill Tapley was a very good ball player, and was another one of the assistants would often be there. Sometimes they played too. So it was good basketball, incredibly intense basketball, I might say.
And that was, did the signups go up in the second year of Rollie as opposed to the year before? Were there more kids playing basketball?
There were a lot of kids coming out.
Yeah.
And what he also did is he brought the junior high coaches into the program. So they were part of the program and taught them techniques, taught them his defense. And they were teaching that to the junior high kids. And he was also bringing in the gym teachers from the elementary schools. So the 5th and 6th grade gym teachers
it's almost
also being taught. So you were getting everybody involved. Yeah, the numbers kept growing. And the thing that he was very clever in doing was getting uniforms.
Yes.
So
I'm looking at these ones right here, just the numbers on the front.
those are good looking uniforms. Those uniforms are brand new.
Strong. I love the socks.
Those are our home uniforms. Notice the white sneakers. We wore blue sneakers on the road to go with our blue uniforms on the road. And, we had a warm-up jersey with our name on the back of it. And then we had sweats that were terrific, that you pulled on and off, kind of like the Boston Celtics.
Oh, yeah. The
Kind of satin looks of them. I figured, just to outfit us probably cost, $300 a guy.
Big crowds, though. What did they pay for tickets back then?
Oh gosh, yeah, but cost was probably nominal.
Yeah.
Students free, so no, everything was done. Rollie's favorite slogan was only takes a few more dollars to go first class. He was always aiming to go first class.
That's a good one. Yeah, but he made you felt good about yourselves. You know, it's almost like you know, you take over a company and you turn it into this kind of rock star corporation with the way he was passed this training down, almost like farming it out to his coaches in junior high and elementary, and everybody being on the same page. I know Danny has a picture of like the first constitution that he gave you guys, kind of like the 10 commandments of Lexington basketball. And what's amazing talking to you from me is that literally none of that changed, right? I'm not sure about Stan, but certainly with Bob, it's
Oh no, Stan
ran it the same way.
absolutely ran it the same
Yeah.
way. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
the interesting thing is, Stan was not an assistant coach during my 3 years. Stan showed up junior year. He was from Maine, and I don't know if he was at the high school sophomore year or not. I can't recall that. But Rollie met Stan, and they talked, and Rollie did what he always did, which was, yeah, come on, join me.
Yeah.
And Stan's job was advanced scout. So if we're going to play Melrose on Friday, Stan would be at the Melrose game on Tuesday
Yeah.
and would do the scouting report on the Melrose team, you know, what they ran, break it down player by player, what his strengths were, what his weaknesses were. You can sit on his left hand, he can't go left, or you can sit on his right hand, and he can't go right, or those sorts of things. And gave very detailed scouting reports. I mean, they would be, you know, a good 10, 15 minute
Yeah.
report on the opposing team.
And Rollie was always bringing people around too, he said, right?
Remarkable. There were always people.
Yeah.
And most of the people lasted. I mean, that was the thing about Rollie. You would think coming in from the outside like you did, there'd be a lot of resentment just among the other gym teachers.
Mm.
His Rollie is getting paid more than they are, and he's getting the best uniforms.
Yes.
But the other guys, surprisingly, really liked him. And I think they looked at him elevating his program and kind of.
I mean, he looks sharp there, doesn't he? In the Lexington windbreaker in the
Yeah,
brand new wheelhouse?
Yeah, and you know, they try to elevate their programs.
Yeah,
So it was more, instead of jealousy, it was more emulation.
that's huge.
Remarkable, because it could have turned into jealousy. But he was such a good guy.
You couldn't get mad.
So charming, so dynamic,
Yeah.
and legit, that they all ended up really liking him. And he coached, you know, he coached the soccer team. He was the JV coach of soccer. That's what he did in the fall. And then he switched over to be a coach on the football team, John Janis's last year.
So funny.
He became a good buddy with Coach Janis's, and it was going to be his last year. And he asked Rollie, well, why don't you come out and you can handle tight ends or split receivers or whatever. And Rollie actually was a very good football player.
When we were in Jupiter, Florida, filming them with Danny, the guy that was behind the camera, he looks up, he says, "What's your name again?" He said, "Scott Arch." He goes, "I think I coached your dad in soccer, Shred Arch." And he's like, "Yeah, you did at Diamond." He talks about it all the time. And it was, you know, it's like, think about a coach back then. He was coaching football, basketball, soccer.
And then the spring he would do track and field. He had no clue what he was coaching. In fact, he tried to talk me into becoming a pole vaulter.
Nice.
Because he was the field guy. He needed a pole vaulter. So he had no clue how to.
That's cool that sport was available.
Excuse me?
That's cool that sport was available. Pole vaulting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and 1 year, I think in the spring he coached golf. I mean, he just in as different slots would open up, and because I guess that was part of the commitment of all the gym teachers. I think they all pretty much coach 3 sports.
What? Yeah. Back in
You
the day.
have your primary sport, and then you'd have your secondary sport.
Did he have a summer camp, Rollie?
Yes, he started Pine Point basketball camp is my junior year, going into my junior year, and that's the camp he did with Doggy Julian, who was head coach at Dartmouth, and
Ooh.
some championship at Holy Cross back in the late.
That Dartmouth connection never went away either between Lexington and Paul Cormier went there. Even in 2006, the head coach still came.
Exactly. The superintendent of schools, I believe, was a Dartmouth grad, which is the reason Rollie name came on the radar screen. It came from Doggy Julian talking to him, buyers, and that's the camp was up near there. It was Rollie ran the summer camp that was at this camp anyway. And so he was doing that and talked the camp owner into putting basketball courts in and lights, I think, if I recall. And Rollie would turn it into a summer camp. That was what the deal was. And Rollie, when I became a lawyer, we chatted, and apparently the camp owner never paid Rollie his share of the profits from Pine Point.
Yeah.
And Rollie, was looking into suing him. He was pretty angry because, I mean,
It's probably a cash cow.
once again, reaching out. And the way you make those camps successful is you get coaches on the staff, and you pay the coaches for the 1 week at the camp or 2, however long the camp goes, and they bring all their kids. So the Concord coach was there, and he'd have his kids, and go around the league. There'd be not all the coaches in the league. John Killalay certainly wouldn't deign to go.
Melrose.
John was way above that, but some of the other coaches did that. So we actually got to be, friends with not only the other coaches in the league, but the guys we're playing against, because you'd be in camp with them. And that was nice. And he befriended other coaches in the Bay State League and some of the other leagues, and they would show up, and they would be on the staff, and and then they'd get together at night and drink and talk basketball.
Eat, sleep, and live basketball.
Yeah, basically. So it was a great experience for the coaches, great experience for the kids. It was fun, and it was terrific competition, and there were a lot of kids from Jersey, because it's Jersey connection, and there were a lot of Jersey coaches, and there were college coaches. I told you, Coach Brandenburg from the Citadel offered me a full scholarship.
Amazing.
So, I mean, that kind of stuff was going on. It was really just at the beginning of all that.
Yeah, but exposure events, all of this excitement, all of a sudden it's a big time program,
And he bring bigger name coaches would come in for a day or 2 days. They wouldn't be there the whole week, and they'd lecture on something, and they'd lead drills on different things, and they'd be all part of the program. And Doggy did it the first year, and then Tate Lott did it the second year, and Tate Lott was the head coach at Army at that point. Before
Bobby Knight.
Yeah, right before Bobby Knight. So when Tate left, Bobby Knight got the job, and Tate got the job at Clemson, which was obviously a plum head coaching job.
Yeah. So
And Tate famously said in the 70s, just keep me within 3 points of Lefty Drysdale.
wow.
2 minutes left in the game, and I'll beat him every time. Quote.
That's amazing.
A lot of coaches didn't think
Drysdale.
of his coaching ability, although they were in awe of his recruiting ability.
Now, so that first year, how did you guys finish up after the rough start? Town outcry.
First year, we started putting it together and had a really good second half of the season, and didn't make the Tech, but made the Bay State tournament, and then went on and won that.
Oh, wow.
And that was good. Unlike the Tech, you didn't play your games in the Garden.
Right. And did Ronnie Lee come your senior year?
Our senior year, we played against Ronnie's brothers.
So he wasn't in high school yet.
They were in Hyde Park, and Ronnie was in 8th grade,
Okay.
if I recall correctly. One brother was Russell, who became, I think he's still the leading scorer in Marshall University history, and was the number 6 pick in the 1970 NBA draft.
Yeah, Russell.
And played on their championship team. And I don't know why his NBA career ended, but it did after 2 or 3 years, because I would have thought he would have been a prototype NBA player. And as I said, he was six pick and a prolific scorer. I don't know what happened.
Do you remember the year that Mecco started? Is that something that stands out? Or was it?
Yeah, it was very controversial.
Okay. What year was what grade were you in for that?
I think it was junior year. It would not have been sophomore year.
Okay, high school.
We were in double session anyway. But I think when they finished the expansion, they announced they were going to be bringing kids in from the inner city, the Metco program, I think it was called, and it was very controversial.
Well, Winchester passed on it. A lot of Middlesex teams did pass on it at that time.
And
yeah,
the kids who came in, were not necessarily athletes. In fact, I don't recall any of them playing on any of the teams I played on.
wow.
And of course, Ronnie comes
that.
because Ronnie's dad met Rollie, and soon after, actually, Hyde Park beat us. I think that was
that your senior year?
That was our senior year, yeah. And I think that's when he either that summer or the following summer, he coached Russell in an all-star game of sport. And that kind of led to the Lee family connection, and that led to Ronnie, coming to Lexington.
And was Coach Farias on the scene when you were a senior?
He was doing his student intern program.
So he played basketball with you guys sometimes, but wasn't an official coach.
Yeah, I don't recall playing ball with him. He wasn't there all the time, but he was around, and I don't know if that's because of what the student teaching requirements were or weren't. But he was certainly around our senior year and helping out with coaching.
Yeah. And did you play with Paul Cormier?
Paul was 3 years younger than me.
Okay, so he was.
So
Okay.
we didn't have, well, the team picture, I think, is Blue Steen and some other guys from sophomore team. George Phelan might have been in that picture, but they didn't play at all, and they were, they were heading the JV team too. There was some movement. It was kind of like a farm system.
Yeah.
The JV team and the varsity, and when I came, historically all Lexington had was the varsity and the JV.
Right.
And Rollie expanded that to add 2 sophomore teams. And now with the 9th grade being part of the high school, he had at least 2 9th grade teams. But the reason the new uniforms every year was so important is because it allowed Rollie to have uniforms for all these additional teams. So they would just, our uniform would go down to the JV,
Yeah.
JV uniform.
It's symbolic. That's why you want to move up.
Would go down to the sophomore. So now you have 1 sophomore team. The next year you'd have an excess set of uniforms that would make, the 2 sophomore teams. And that's kind of the way it went. You had 1 freshman team, all of a sudden there were 2 or 3 or 4 freshman teams. So every time he got another set of uniforms, he'd create another team.
That's unbelievable. He created a basketball frenzy in Lexington. So did you ever see Ronnie Lee play before he got to Lexington in the 8th grade? When
No.
did you guys know he was coming? Like that summer when you were off to college?
That summer, yeah. And, I went down and, during Christmas vacation or whatever, would scrimmage with, Ronnie would be playing, and obviously exceptionally good.
Yeah. How did they do his freshman year with Rollie? Because that was Rollie's last year, I think. I think he had 1 year with Ronnie Lee.
They went 20-1. They
Wow.
went into the Tech 20-0.
Ooh.
And if you talk to Cormier,
Yeah.
you get more out of Cormier than I've ever been able to get out when I've asked him, Paul, how did you lose in the first round of the Tech? We had an excuse. We went in at 15-5, so we're playing another team that was 15-5.
Right.
And oh, by the way, Paul, one of the guys, was number 6 draft pick for the NBA. So don't tell me how good the other team was you played.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a bad game. I just think the team they played turned out to be good, but they were favored to win everything.
Wow.
It was, I guess, a real shock that they lost. I saw Paul and his guys play a couple of times, but I'm trying to think. Might have been 19.
Look at Paul and Frank sitting next to each other, the 2 coaches.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So,
And 55 is a giant. And those are some Daisy Dukes. Oh boy. Those aren't
I
even
think
Daisy
50
Dukes. Those are just underwear.
yeah, I don't have my glasses. Is Mondano there?
55 was who is this guy at the bottom?
That must be Mondano. Yeah, Mondano.
Yeah.
Mondano's the kid that Rollie ran into in the halls of Lexington and looked up, and he was 6'7". Rollie said, "You're going to play basketball?" He said, "I don't know how to play basketball." He said, "I'm going to teach you." He said, "Well, I don't know." He was a real smart kid. I think he was advanced program. And I think he was more into violins than basketball. And Rollie literally taught him how to play basketball from, you know, I don't think he'd ever even touched the basketball.
6'7" kid walking around that campus. Rollie was not going to be denied.
He was not going to be denied, right?
He can't teach height. 20-1. That's unbelievable. So so we'll go back. Your freshman year or your sophomore year, you guys lose in the first round. Junior year, now it's Rollie's second year. How did you guys?
No. So sophomore year, we win the Bay State. Junior year, we go on a run. We went on a run out of the box. We won our first 11 games, and we're 11-0. And
did they have rankings back then, like the Boston Globe?
They not as official as it later became, but
Yeah,
a lot of press, but the league was really good that year. Wakefield, I think, ended up winning Class B. Melrose with Killalay was very good.
yeah.
Belmont was very good. So we ended up losing some tough games down the stretch, and they were tough games, meaning, I mean, 2 of them we lost literally flyers at the buzzer.
Mm.
And the other 3, I think we lost by 2 or 3 points. So it was so we went 4-5 down the stretch, but qualified for the tournament and then got a second win, and we played really well in the tournament and lost in the semis on a disputed call.
Always.
Well, it was questionable. Rollie was pretty upset at the call.
To put it mildly.
And we ended up losing by 2. But the thing about Rollie, I mean, even when we lost, I mean, I can count every game we lost. Certainly junior and senior year, it was by 2 points or less. Except for maybe one game, I think Melrose beat us at Melrose by 7 or 8 points. It was a very disappointing game, but every other game was 2 points.
Yeah.
And
John Killalay was an NBA scout, right? Coach Killalay from Melrose, I think he went on to be an NBA scout.
Oh no, he was an assistant to Tommy Heinsohn. He wasn't a scout.
Wow.
He was a full-fledged assistant, and he was Tommy's defensive assistant.
Wow. This picture right here, Kevin, look at this. That's the old gym as we remember it. And wow.
That would be typical. You couldn't get a seat unless you got in there early. And the other side would have been equally as crowded as that. And some other gyms that were bigger than Lexington, and they would be typically packed. Virtually every place we played, it would be packed. A Tuesday game, which would be in the afternoon, obviously wouldn't be quite as crowded as a Friday game, but Friday game would be jammed every place we played.
What would you guys do after a win on Friday? In good old is there like a pizza joint?
No, we'd usually go to somebody's house. And,
yeah.
And the chippies would come with us.
Yeah.
The girls.
Of course. It's part of the Constitution.
We all hung out together. We're all friends. I mean, we're friends.
Because in some of the pictures too, do you remember when did the ball you man go up on the sign at the home game?
I don't.
That's a rare fan.
I can't. It doesn't surprise me to see defense up there. I don't know when the ball you man went up, but that of course was on the other side of the court. Picture you had,
right.
It could have very well have been up there too. I just can't remember.
And we talked about it last week, but tell us again today, just ball you man, and tell us about that.
Well, ball you man, the concept is you always stay between the ball in your man and you deny your man the ball. That's what the fundamental of that defense is. So you're putting pressure not only on the guy with the ball, meaning you're playing defense when your man has the ball. You're playing defense when your man doesn't have the ball.
Right.
And you're supposed to be preventing the man with the ball from throwing the ball to your man.
Right. Sagging in, preventing.
And at the same time, you still had to give weak side help.
Right.
So that looks like sophomore year. That's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
Sharp uniforms.
Yeah.
So this is your sophomore year. Okay. This is the
The other thing that Rollie did is Rollie put a lot of sophomores, not me, but a lot of sophomores in the varsity. And B Sucker, Allen was our point guard, good, Mariah Hastings guy.
Nice.
And Crisp, Allen, John was our center and the best player on the team. Just superb athlete.
Where did he go to college?
He went to UConn.
Oh, nice.
He was part of the he was part of the Gaynor Crisp package that UConn was able to sign.
Yeah. Maybe some notes of that. Kevin, you played there 1 year at UConn?
Yeah, I played 1 year, and I hit the final shot of the freshman season before a packed field house. And as the ball was going through the net, the horn went off, and I looked around and I said, "This is as good as my career is ever going to get. It's time to retire." Which
Walked out on top.
I announced to Coach Carlson in the locker room. He said, "Kevin, I knew you were smart, but I didn't know you were that smart." So that's a really good decision between high school and college in terms of talent. I can tell you that.
What was the difference between the college practice and the high school practice under Rollie?
The only criticism I'll ever have of Rollie is we didn't shoot enough, and we didn't place enough emphasis on shooting. And shooting is acquired skill, actually. You can't learn to shoot.
Yeah.
And, obviously Rollie would try to teach. In college, we spent a lot more time shooting than we did blocking out, going through defensive drills and so on. There were all sorts of shooting drills that we did. And I think it made everybody better shooters.
So it was a good practice in UConn. The intensity was there.
Yeah, the intensity
program.
Yeah, it was a first-rate program.
Yeah.
And with offense, defense, and you scrimmaged hard. Yeah, it was a very well-run program. But
Kevin, you were the vice president of the class?
Yeah, and Jock was president.
Oh, wow.
But,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so.
That's back when, you think of like college, just in another era. It was being like that all-star basketball player really did mean you were a stand-up person in the community and you really did well at everything.
In theory, I guess.
In theory, always. Good actors.
In theory.
That's good acting.
I think we're all good students, and we're certainly as good as we could be. In Rollie, and that's what Rollie expected. The thing about Rollie is he didn't expect you to be more than you could be. But he had an idea of where you should be.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to where he thought you should go. He could make your life miserable.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if he didn't think you could get there, he wasn't going to yell at you. He wasn't going to push you harder than you could be pushed. He just did that.
And you had said before, like, you've seen just a lot of, leaders and the corporate and the law world and your professional life, but just Rollie, like that mix of teaching and coaching, just from everything you say, it's just the balance that you would look for in a mentor like that. But also, I asked you last time, what do you take in your own professional life from team sports? And I don't even know if you could answer me. You almost got choked up. I'm sure it was important to you. What do you get credit team sports and basketball with?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I give
just
Rollie credit for who I am today.
yeah, that's amazing. Makes notes for that. That's unbelievable. I mean, I get choked up too. It's remarkable what he was only there, I think, 7 years. And this thing in his wake stretched 50 years. And then they finally had enough of basketball.
Which is stunning to me.
What's that?
Didn't Lexington have a football coach that recently died?
Yeah, Coach Ty in COVID. And he coached for
25 years or something.
For, I mean, I think even longer than that. I mean, my mother's boyfriend was telling me, he's like, he was old when we were in high school.
Well, he was I just read the article. I mean, he was like 89 when he died.
Yeah.
And just stopped coaching.
Yeah.
87.
Yeah, he was the oldest high school coach in America.
Did they de-emphasize football too?
Yeah.
He would have still been coaching.
Yeah. In fact, Rocky, what's his name? The legend from Woburn, where football is really the focus. After he was forced out, the same year they forced out the hockey coach and Coach Farias, he went and he volunteered. The Rocky in Woburn said, "Hey, come over here. We'd love to have you on the sideline."
Really?
Yeah. He was funny. He used to, this is 1993. I'm playing, and I got the wristband on with the gloves, and it's driving Coach Ty crazy because he's so old school. And he tells me, "I used to take my helmet off, Easton, and fold it and put it in my pocket."
No, he didn't say that.
That's how far back he goes.
Oh my God.
He played with Harry Aganis in like the 30s.
Did he play? Well, Aganis was actually late 40s.
Late 40s. Who was before him? I'm trying to think who was like a Heisman Trophy guy.
But he would have been contemporary of it. I mean, Aganis would have been 89.
Yeah. So contemporaries. Tell us, Kevin, the story of, because this is important, the kid that he threw off. You'd mentioned that Rollie reached back and helped him. Again,
he didn't let Jack back on the team, which is surprising. I could actually, in retrospect, see him suspending Jack. I'm a little surprised that he never let him back on. He made sure
to make a statement early, maybe,
Yeah, he just said, I can't tolerate lying. It wasn't I can't tolerate smoking. I can't tolerate lying. I just couldn't do it. Just crossed the line, and I just couldn't reach back. But he made sure Jack went to college. Jack went to Youngstown University. And Jack was a really lousy student.
Yeah,
but he got him to Youngstown, and Jack maybe even played at Youngstown.
Wow, he played there.
I don't know that for a fact. I don't even know whether Jack graduated. But Rollie called a friend who was coaching Youngstown, and they took him. Jack certainly went to school for a while there.
Yeah. Did he talk to you? How involved was Rollie or instrumental with your college placement and your other teammates? Like, was he involved with that process at all?
Well, Rollie was getting a master's in counseling, and part of what he was learning from that is he put a profile together for each one of us, a separate profile. So you'd have all your statistics, grades, and everything would be in the little file he would put together, and then he would have a list of target schools
Yeah.
that he had researched.
Wow.
In the spring before your senior year, and he would meet with your parents
Wow.
and you, and he'd come over on a Saturday afternoon and spend an hour going over where you were as a student, where he saw you going,
Wow.
what out there, where he thought you would be happy. Yeah, you really put a lot of time in that.
That's huge because that's now, probably a very expensive service, that.
But yeah. And the thing about Rollie is I never understood where he found the time to do all the stuff he did. I mean,
Yeah.
he was forever in motion. Same time,
Make some noise for that.
he wasn't frantic. If you can, it was always controlled. It was always not always hyper.
Yeah.
Just he had all this energy.
Yeah.
And he could do these things. I mean, he also had, while he's spring, he's still coaching. He's getting ready for summer camp.
He's got 5 kids, right? Or 3
He's
kids.
got at that 4 kids, and then the 5th was on the way.
Wow.
Friends continue to show up from everywhere.
Yeah.
And he still had time for everything. I don't know when he slept. And I think later on, because Paul would tell me this, basically he would just fall asleep in a minute. They'd be in a car. Rollie would have gone someplace to give a speech. And of course, Rollie never drove himself after
Yeah.
left Lexington. He always had drivers like Danny and folks like that. But and Danny could tell you more, but the moment the event would be over, say it's 12 o'clock at night or something, 12:08, Rollie would be asleep. And so might have a 3-hour drive somewhere, but he'd be asleep. And he'd wake up and he was fresh as I think he probably only needed about 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night.
The timing of it, when you think about, Kevin, your own life too, every kid that came before you that liked basketball, they had that kind of standard experience, and you can get some, some years are good, some years are bad, but it's pretty standard. You got this legend, right, that you still can't process. How do you do all that?
Yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And just a magic moment, and we're all very
better because of it.
Yeah, I think there's no question about it.
And in the Lexington basketball story, with the de-emphasis of sports, and now it's kind of like every other place, even looking through the yearbook photos that Sean has been putting up, it's amazing to see the town was behind sports, obviously.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. And how it really should be. It's tripping me out seeing the field house with the bubble lights on it.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
When was that built?
That was built as part of the
Expansion.
What
year were you?
So that would have been sophomore year when they were doing the build out. So that would have been 60. I mean, imagine building that in 1962, 63.
It's unbelievable. It looks like it would be like the Astrodome.
Yeah, but that's the kind of facilities, and there was a big debate in town about whether to add a big swimming complex with it too. The feeling was, well, the Hayden was still pretty new, and do we really need that? But I think, haven't they built a pool?
Well, Hayden had a pool.
Oh, Hayden had a pool. Did Lexington ever build a pool?
No.
I don't. I think the swim team used to use the Hayden pool.
The town pool and the Hayden pool. Yeah. Yeah. So, but Kevin, it's fascinating for you as a sophomore in the expansion in the 60s, that whole thing. But in 3 years, when you left your senior year, talk about how different the feeling was with this basketball program. You basically were leaving. Yeah. I mean, in 3 years, the change that you saw. Talk about that.
Well, I mean, it was quite remarkable, and Coach Tadero, who was a very talented coach and took over the football team after Coach Ganis retired and turned them into a very, very good football team.
Nice.
The gymnastics coach who knew that he knew football, said something like, well, we used to, there were physical fitness drills.
Right.
That the school, as part of the gym program, you had to go through, and they'd put you in one of 4 classes to start with: gold, blue, gray, black, I guess, for the 4th class. So the low class were kids who just needed to get physically fit.
I like that.
The 2nd and 3rd group,
At camp.
you would teach them skills, and then the gold kids, they all passed these physical fitness tests at the top of the scale, so you had a different program designed for them.
Right.
And so I guess 2 or 3 of us went through this ridiculous maze, and they would time you, and I guess it was 1, 2, and 3, all of us being basketball players. And I said to Coach Tadero, I said, boy, that's kind of amazing. And he said, what's amazing? Rollie has all the elite athletes in town playing for him.
Yeah.
Of course you guys did well.
Yeah.
And
Recruiting.
that's kind of the way it was. And once again, I'm surprised there was not more resentment with other coaches.
Yeah.
That,
Because that happens every time.
I mean, you would just think that if all the elite kids are playing
Right.
Rollie's sport, that means they're not playing coach whatever. But that wasn't really the case. But it was true, though. I mean, you look at all the, if you look at just the basic physical fitness tests, we all scored at the top of the scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the way it was.
Yeah. Well, and what was were practices the same every day?
He designed every practice.
Okay, so each practice was a little different.
Each practice was different. I mean, there were certain basics. You obviously did offense, you obviously did defense, you obviously did rebounding.
What is this, Kevin? Is this your house by any chance?
I'm wondering if is that Hillside?
I think so.
I did 10 Hill Street. Is that right?
That is it. Well, that's the place.
That's the joy of the yearbooks. The yearbook's giving out a lot of pertinent information.
Wow.
Wow, there it is.
I haven't seen that in years. We moved there when we sold the house we moved into, which was a brand new house we moved in like all the other, and that was an interim place. We lived for a couple of years.
Hill Street, that's Hastings.
This one's close to Bedford Street. So Bedford, it's not too far from the country club.
Yeah.
The golf course would have been 5 minutes up the hill on your right.
So Kevin, let's go back to the Division I ABC, right? Your the Doc Abel era was 1B. Now that would be, I think, like Division II today. Like you guys didn't go through Brockton, Fall River, New Bedford, Cambridge, Salem. Okay. When did they go to Division IA?
It was after I left, and
the first time they saw Ronnie Lee play.
Yeah, right. But the first time they said Ronnie, and that was based on, I think it was town population or it was size of high school. I can't recall which. Maybe it was size of high school. That would have been a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Urban schools were growing and the urban schools were shrinking. So
Okay, so it could have been just the town was growing and Ronnie Lee happened to be there.
yeah, no, it wasn't because Ronnie was exceptionally
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Well, because he went 50-0 anyways. So in Division II, I mean, I
Right.
guess he.
Yeah, I mean, it was totally statistical. But you got to remember, I mean, as good as Ronnie was, the guys around Ronnie were pretty terrific.
Yeah, Wayne Morrison.
Yeah, I mean, they were just really good ball players, and Ronnie was able to take that group to another level.
Yeah.
You're dealing,
Glace, right?
yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a very sophisticated program at that point. It's now, 7 years out, you've got
Right.
kid in Lexington having played at that point defense and offense that Rollie was putting in with the varsity. They were playing fifth grade on, and they were practicing and focusing on basketball from fifth grade on. Yeah,
Yeah.
they may not, they didn't do like they do now and play it 12 months out of the year, but it was their primary sport. So you might play football, but you're playing basketball on the weekend. Or you might play baseball, but you're playing basketball on the weekend. In summer, same thing.
So this is the Rollie math. So for you to look back, coming back in college, where'd you go after UConn?
Virginia, UVA.
Oh, nice. Cavaliers. Okay, so when you come back for the holidays, you see Ronnie Lee Mania. You've seen this whole thing change from your sophomore year in a very brief amount of time. That's legendary.
Yeah, I mean, it was all just pretty neat, but it was all
Rollie.
Well, yeah, but we expected it.
Yeah.
It was not, it was, isn't it great to win a state title? Well,
Why not us?
it was kind of there. I mean, it was something we thought was achievable. So it wasn't, oh my God, how did they do that? It was, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, they're better than us, but the expectations for us were very high.
Yeah.
And the expectations for the ones that followed us were even higher as they get better and better and better and better.
So when Coach Farias, even in the new century, all of these practices, all of these philosophies, all of these games, everything you have said was really not changed. And he could just walk in and sit down. And he had the summer camp. He was a Fall River guy, big basketball culture down there. Rollie, people coming around all the time. Same thing, and he emulated what Rollie did. So at the end, he could literally, and you think about just a well-run corporation, when you get to that point and you are the best and everybody knows it and you do A, B, and C better than everybody else, he would just sit on a chair for 2 hours and the practice would legit run itself and they never lost.
That's incredible.
And it's incredible. And like all of these things, even as a kid growing up at the camps, and I told you when we were kids in the 80s, the Villanova guys used to come to Hayden and we would go to Villanova camp. And Harold Presley and Ed Pinkney and those 85 guys we knew when we were kids. And so it was like, for us, it was almost like a Disneyland thing because Rollie became this 80s icon. He's doing Rollie commercials, for $1 million bucks. He was, when we were in his office with Danny down in Jupiter, I'm looking at this wall and, I turned to my man, I was like, Rollie was like that guy in the 80s. He was one of like 40 really, really famous people.
I think that's right. Yeah.
He had a picture with Frank Sinatra.
Any Italian celebrity.
Any Italian celebrity. Danny said that Rollie told him a story that he was in a car with Mario Andretti and they got pulled over and the cop said, "What do you think? You're Mario Andretti?"
What a great line.
Yeah. And Mario Andretti's like, actually, I am. Sorry.
That is funny. Tommy Lasorda was another one of
That's
Rollie's.
who was in that picture too. It was Tommy Lasorda, Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. Well, Sinatra was Jersey.
Right.
Lasorda was Pennsylvania, but East Pennsylvania. So he was, Italian.
He says, Kevin, in the Jupiter interview, he goes, I brought Jersey ball. And he said it was a little Joyzy. You could hear it. We were like, what's that? He goes, the Jersey ball. He goes, as this big ball, and guys I didn't like, I'd knock over in the head with the Jersey ball. And Ralph Lord used to come over and be like, you can't do that. And he went on to say, if we ever did that today, we'd be done.
Yeah, but that's the thing about Rollie. Rollie was smart enough so he would have adapted.
Yeah.
And Rollie wouldn't do that today, whereas some guys like Luke Campanelli,
Right.
who was coaching Berkeley and won the Jason Kittle birding war and lasted 4 games.
Right. That's big.
Because he was still the screamer, the yeller, the this and that.
Yeah, and that Coach Farias wasn't able to evolve into to kind of the new school and just the new rules of everything, So there is a way to do it.
There is, and Rollie certainly didn't scream and yell down at Norwood.
Yeah.
He still got his point across, and he knew that, and he still as fiery as he was, and he still didn't tolerate. He didn't tolerate bad behavior. In fact, Lee's cousin was on the Norwood team. I think it was Ronnie's cousin, and Rollie bounced it, and he was.
Yeah.
Rollie just didn't like his attitude.
Yeah.
Couldn't
do it today.
Much to everybody's chagrin, because they lost the guy wasn't starting, but he was, 7th, 8th guy and very athletic, like, Ronnie. And I think they lost a game. Rollie was a little frustrated with him anyway. He was singing in the shower after a loss.
Ooh, can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that. And he was gone the next day.
Oh man.
And Rollie
walking to the gym in snowstorms.
Yeah. Well, excuse me?
He was telling us about walking to the gym in snowstorms. Practice was never canceled.
No, it was never canceled. It was never canceled. When he was a college coach, it wasn't canceled. Yeah. And
do you have memories of walking through the snow to practice?
10 feet high.
Yeah.
Blizzards. No, I mean, you just wouldn't miss practice. You just wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, you'd be gone.
It wasn't the fear of Rollie. It was just you loved it.
Yeah.
You got to see your buds. You got to hang out with Rollie. Practices were wonderful. Hard, but they're wonderful. They're interesting.
Competition.
Yeah, competition was fabulous.
Yeah.
No, if you didn't want to go to practice, you had a real problem.
Yeah.
You deserve to be bounced.
So the timing, when we talk about this whole Lexington basketball thing and getting away from sports, it's so sad for me or a kid like you, and we live right out there by Hastings, and you love basketball, but this, that's why Yogi Berra said, I'd rather be lucky than good. A lot of times it just, you have to take advantage of what's in front of you. And
absolutely.
The Rollie thing, I would always think like, oh, this was a wrinkle that was put in there. And then the more I talk to guys from those early years, and this is you're the key, because you were a sophomore, right? And of course your buddy who you played with, but you saw the sea change and how it's never easy up front. People are resistant to change, but with positive energy the right attitude, your heart in the right place, like you can really, anything's possible. So you saw this kind of like, as you said last time, this sleepy Massachusetts historic town, right, get frenzied with basketball. 3 years later, it's a big time program.
Yep.
One little guy,
One little guy.
it's inspiring, because it makes you think that it is coaching and it is the players. That's what it is. Like you can do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
So those are great messages. Yeah, Rollie. We told you the one clip when they said, Rollie, how do you think you do? He had played Kentucky and they lost by 50 points. And they said, Rollie, how do you think you do if you coached Kentucky? And he said, if I coach Kentucky, and just started laughing. And that's all he could say. If I coach Kentucky, I would never lose a game.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's true. I don't think he ever would. I mean, Paul Cormier says he's the best bench coach he has ever seen. Paul has been in and around the game.
Right. Like making in-game adjustments and managing the.
Yeah. I still remember I used to always go when Rollie would come with the Villanova team to play Georgetown because I was in DC.
Yeah.
So I'd be able to get to those games. And so it's the Capitol Center. And I guess I went back with the team for halftime. Walking down the walkway back into the auditorium, back into the gym, and he's, oh God, what's his name? The guy went on to be head coach. Also,
Plansky?
Yeah, it begins with a B. Really nice guy, and he was the first assistant. Paul was the second assistant, and he turns to him and goes, "Get me players. Get me players." This is, of course, when Georgetown is.
Yeah, Ewing.
I mean, they had everybody.
Yeah.
You get me players, and this game wouldn't even be close because he's in charge. He's in charge of the recruiting.
Right.
And Rollie was pissed. They were down like 10 at halftime, and I can't recall whether they ended up coming back and winning. They won, a few times down in when they played Georgetown in DC, and which was always an upset because Villanova was Georgetown was better in those games.
Yeah, they were on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
I mean, they were phenomenal.
That's a great memory. A DC Georgetown Villanova game, going into the locker room, Cormier, and trying to think who the other assistant coach there was, but yeah, so he took Paul with him to Villanova, and then where did he went to Dartmouth after that?
Paul went to Dartmouth. Paul went to Dartmouth the year before they won the national championship.
Yeah, wow.
Paul was very instrumental in recruiting. The team won the national championship.
Wow. Like Ed Pigton.
They were all kids.
That's an amazing nugget.
And I was in Portland, Maine as assistant U.S. attorney that season.
Oh, nice. You were ahead of your time. Portland, Maine is amazing.
I would see Paul, or I'd see Paul's assistant who played at Villanova. Oh God, what's his name? Really nice guy. They would be traveling over the mountains in the middle of the winter. They did it 15 times to see this kid who resembled Lonnie Lake.
Wow.
Same size, lefty.
Mm.
And here he was in Portland, Maine. And in those, the recruiting rules were such you could only talk to the kid twice.
Yeah.
So they would do the bump in parents. And that would be it. They drive all the way over the mountains.
Oh man, that's tough.
The middle of the winter to Portland, Maine, or wherever else the kid was playing. They do the bump in with the parents, hang around. As soon as the game was over, he's back in the car. And
Yeah.
Happy Dobbs was the assistant.
Happy.
He became the head coach.
Who's the kid that they were looking at? The lefty.
I can't remember his name. He ended up going to Penn, not Dark.
Yeah.
He's a smart kid too. And yeah, they didn't, after 15 times of going over the mountain back again, they didn't even get it. I mean,
Oh,
and that's when I said, boy, this college coaching thing is really hard. I mean, this is brutal.
well, the college recruiting is insane, but you think about Rollie coming in, recruiting all of the best kids in town, taking Coach Cormier and turning him into the guy that actually recruited the perfect game.
Well, that's
Astounding.
a nice way of putting it together. That's a nice way.
It's bananas. Like, you know, to this day, the lowest seed to ever win a national championship.
Yes, EC. And
They
they
joked that Coach Ferris put on 100 pounds after they won.
they had to play everybody, every power, every game they won was against the national power. Just the way
They're smart.
they were. I mean, it was just brutal. If you look at who they beat and who they beat, I think the first game was close, and then every game after that, until the final game, they were in charge.
Yeah, they're on a run.
Everybody's shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, they blew away Memphis in the semis, and Memphis was heavily favored. They had a Keith Lee, I think was the guy's name.
Yeah.
Was a lottery pick. Phenomenal talent.
I think Coach Cormier was in Memphis too at one point towards the end of his career in the NBA.
It's possible. I mean, he had a number of NBA gigs where he was doing super scouting and things like that. And yeah, he did a number of those things. Have you talked to Paul?
No, he's on our list though. He's on our
Yeah,
list.
I mentioned him to you.
Okay.
He knew Farrier very well.
Yeah. I know. Well, when we were in high school, he was at Fairfield. Our center, Sean Grower, his mother Maureen was from Lexington. He ended up playing there for him. But we would go every year, and play actual Fairfield High School, and then we would go watch Fairfield University play. And Fairfield High was like the number one ranked team in Connecticut. We were the number one ranked team in Massachusetts. So we would go
That's neat.
like a showcase. And that's when I first met Coach Cormier. I was going to ask you, did Rollie schedule kind of cool out of conference games? Did you guys ever?
No, they weren't doing that in those days.
Yeah.
The idea traveling.
Oh, and the other thing too, you said they put in the rule when you were there about the coach not being able to coach in the off season, the kids.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Well, I presume it was going into our senior year because he no longer could scrimmage with us. They could show up, but they couldn't play.
Or talk.
Some requirement like that.
What led to that? Any ideas?
I don't know. I suspect it had to do with guys like Rollie doing really well and
Yeah.
doing well, and they didn't like the competitive edge.
Yeah, there's no rules like that in Texas or Florida.
Yeah, there you go. Right. But Blue State, Massachusetts, they always find a rule to prohibit anything.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
What was the record of your team? Your
Yeah, so my sophomore year, so there at the end of the 80s, there was one year where they were 500. And the 80s teams were like Lloyd, who we interviewed after Ronnie Lee. And Lloyd went and played for Rollie at Villanova for a year. And then he played in California, UCal Irvine.
Yeah.
And him and those teams were fantastic. Yeah, they were unbelievable. And all of the 80s teams, Al Middleton, He played for Jim O'Brien at St. Bonaventures.
Okay, sure.
He had a couple brothers, so they won every year. They always lost in either Salem or UMass. But by the time I was at our sophomore year, we started out, I think 15-0, and the Boston Globe wrote a whole article about retracing like the origins, because there'd been a couple of bad years after Lloyd left. And so then we won the Middlesex, or split it, my freshman year, and I was on the freshman team. But then my sophomore year, I got called to varsity. They were 15-0. We lost in the semifinal to South Boston at UMass Boston. So we advanced past Salem.
So they didn't play all the games in the garden?
No. Only the Eastern half state final. And then if you won that, you go to Worcester and play in the Central against Springfield and those teams. But yeah, so that team was great. My junior year, we were number one in the state for most of the year. Belmont was, because the Middlesex League at that point, we were the only Division I. They were really good teams. Belmont, Wakefield, Melrose was still really good, but they were.
So you were. Well, I remember when football stopped playing Concord on.
Yeah.
On
what year was
Thanksgiving. Probably. Were they still doing it when you were there?
No, that's sad though. They should have just kept it for revolutionary purposes.
But it had to do with Lexington going into Division I and Concord Division II. At least that's what I was told.
Well, there's a mysterious, because what happened in the early 90s, right, is population went way down. Hastings ended up closing. Population boom 25 years later. They just, they reopened it. Lexington in the early 90s went down to Division II in all sports because the enrollment had gone down. And that was my 4 years there. But for reasons we do not understand, basketball remained Division I, even though the other sports had all dropped to Division II.
Well, that's strange.
Very curious thing.
One of the stories to them.
I know. I'm not really even sure who to.
I mean, obviously Ferris would know, but he's passed.
Yeah, he's passed. Yeah. He didn't. I talked to him about it. He didn't even recall it when I was talking to him in 2006, 2007 to see. He goes, I don't even remember the other sports dropping to Division II, which they did for like 5 or 6 years.
You didn't realize that, huh?
Yeah,
well, I remember also hearing there was talk that Lexington was going to start the Concord game up again. So maybe it was during that time period. Maybe dropped to Division II. Concord would have been Division II, but they'd probably already scheduled. And then Lexington goes back up to Division I, and then all falls apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a big swing, right, when you get into the tournament. Salem as opposed to some of the bigger schools. But so we lost in Salem my junior year, and then my senior year, our power forward in the spring had died the night he got his license. He's 6'5", leapers, really good player. And then our center that played at Fairfield, the first day of practice, blew out his leg. We were 15-5.
Yeah.
But we had been so good for those last 2 years. We thought we were going to go undefeated,
Yeah, sure.
We'd only lost 3 games in the 2 years prior. So we felt like that too. We were supposed to, win the league, and
You're supposed to win.
when did Rollie win the state title? Because he did win.
I mean, that was the Bay State title.
Oh, that was the Bay State title. Okay.
Yeah, it's cleverly written.
Make some noise for fudging the books a little bit.
Well, it was a state title.
Yeah.
But it was not the state title.
Right.
But
and that was your sophomore year.
That was our sophomore year.
Because he had that plaque. He had that plaque in his office in Jupiter going through the stuff.
Yeah.
And Danny, of course, in Rollie's last couple of years in Florida, where he had the billionaires, financing this whole school, and he was just in heaven. But Danny is the one that, especially when we had visited, he was maybe had another year left. At that point, Rollie, every day after practice, Danny, go home, do your thing, come get me. We're going to have dinner. We're going to have wine. And Danny has heard every Rollie story of all time. So he's a great resource for those last 2 years. I think Rollie almost looked at it like, this is gonna be the guy for any questions about me. I'm gonna give him all
We,
this.
we were trying to put together a Rollie dinner, Lexington Rollie dinner.
Yeah.
And it was the summer of the year before Rollie died. It was my class's 50th reunion. So we were going to do it around that and get whoever we could get, in touch with. And, we probably had about 30 committed. And we had a place that was in Waltham, Italian restaurant in Waltham.
Chateau.
Yeah, I think it was the Chateau. So it was kind of really getting ready to go, and I did a plaque for him that we were going to give him. And anyway, he.
That's amazing that you had 30 guys.
Yeah. It was just in those who couldn't come, they were in Europe or someplace. So it was anybody who we could contact said, be there. And oh, by the way, can so-and-so come? Can so-and-so come? Can so-and-so? I mean, who knows? We might end up with 60 by the time we were done. But he went back in the hospital for treatment. And that was in June, late June. And got out of the hospital. And this was set up for end of July. And I said, Rollie, do you really think you can make it from Philly to Boston? He said, absolutely, I'll be there. And finally the doctor said, no.
Yeah, I can't do it.
And I don't know, one of the guys, maybe he was going to be driving him. But he was so insistent on it. It surprised me because I was thinking, well, if that doesn't work, we'll reschedule for the following year.
Yeah.
Or we couldn't do it in the fall because that would be the season. And he said, no, I want to do it now. Didn't know until after he died how sick he was then.
Yeah.
And he was
happened quick, I feel like. It happened quick, I feel like.
Well, it didn't. And that's what I thought. But Paul really in all the details. But he had this brain cancer for like 3 years. Kept it at bay with the chemo. But they told him, once we go through a couple of different chemo regimes and it stops working, that'll be it. So he was urgent about having the dinner because he knew it could be soon.
Yeah.
And but I saw him a few times that following year, and he called me. I guess he was coming up for Danny's wedding, I think, in Boston.
Oh yeah.
That June, and I was in Newark, with a client, and I get a phone call from him and talked to him in 2 or 3 months. And he said, hey, how you doing? I'm in Philly. Let's together for dinner. And it was one of those things, I should have canceled
Everything.
the thing, gotten on the train and gone down there. And I still didn't understand the urgency.
Yeah.
And I was shocked, obviously, when he ended up dying 2 months later. He died in August.
Yeah. Was it in Philly where he passed?
No, he was back in Florida.
Oh, he's in Florida.
I think he was back in Florida.
Is that where it was? Is he buried down there? Or?
No, he's buried in a cemetery right near Villanova.
Oh, that's amazing. And we have photos of a young Jay Wright when we used to go to Villanova camp. It's unbelievable.
I mean, Jay Wright is such a class act. I still follow Villanova. because of Rollie, but also because of Jay. I mean, I can't tell you how kind he is when you beat him, but how kind he was to Rollie.
Really?
I mean, he's the one who brought about the reconciliation.
Mm,
Rollie left pretty angry.
yeah.
Um,
1990, 91. Maybe.
yeah, when he took the UNLV job.
Right.
And,
J.R. Ryder.
and then, even with the Cleveland State job, there just was a emotional divide between Villanova.
But I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big job. He took,
Particularly on Rollie's side, there was a hurt there, and Jay really reached out and healed the wound.
that's amazing. Makes me
And
nice for that.
brought him back, and it was for one of the celebrations of the '85 championship. Can't recall what year. It was 25th anniversary.
Yeah,
So
we when Villanova won again, well, because when they won on the shot at the buzzer in this century, the last one, you have Rollie behind the bench for it, right? So he's in the crowd. You see him on national television like that. It's just a magnanimous moment. We went down to Philly with Coach Farias, who was like not doing well at that time. And it was a cancer thing. We knew the Plansky brothers at Wakefield. One of them, Mark, played at Villanova on that '85 team.
Right.
He didn't start or anything, but a great player from Wakefield. We knew them from going to the Dave Collins basketball camp. And so my best man, who's the point guard in '94 with me, I was a two guard, but he had stayed in touch with Mark Plansky's younger brother. And he had said, you guys should come out. I throw this cancer thing for coaches. And they had just won. He's like, the '85 team comes back. It's black tie. It's in Philly. It'll be a great night. And so we took Coach Farias, who wasn't doing well there. I got to give it up to my man Mike because he had to travel with him from Boston, and he wasn't doing good at that point. But
was that after his wife died?
Yes, yeah, a couple years, and he went pretty
downhill pretty quickly.
Yeah, after Cheryl, and they had the grandson Maddie kind of pass away, and I think that made Cheryl crazy.
Yeah.
So that was sad, and we wanted to do that for Coach Farias, but it was really nice that in a video that I'll send you too. There's a great picture of Jay, Bob, and Rollie. Camera rolling, and Bob just says, "You two guys are the best," and kind of hugs him out. And Jay Wright, like he's going to be our next guy. That Jay Wright is, on the docket, and he's going to come and talk to us. So, like you said, I mean, obviously he's a great person if he would take time to talk to us, Jay Wright.
Jay is one of the most gracious people I think I've ever met. And, my age, I can say I've met a lot of people, but he's incredibly gracious. And the speech he gave at Rollie's memorial service was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
And see, what did lead to Rollie? Because when I was in high school, I used to go with Coach Farias. He would take me in the middle of high school day, and we would go to BC when Villanova was in town. And it was Steve Lapis, who, just went from.
Yes, Lapis.
That was like the highlight of his coaching career. But the program just went like that until Jay Wright came back in the fold. So maybe we wonder what happened with Rollie. There, any thoughts?
I think Lapis Lapis was on that '85 staff, and he took Coleman's place. Yeah, and then Lapis got the head coaching job at Manhattan and was a hot coach for a while, and then they brought him back to Villanova, and that didn't go well.
Yeah.
What happened with Rollie is part of it was the game change. From 1980 to 1985, 86, I would argue Rollie was the best coach in America
Yeah.
in terms of what his record was, his record in the NCAA. It was remarkable. I mean, so just pure coaching. He hit the jackpot in recruiting with the 85 championship team. I mean,
Yeah. Paul Cormier.
that was it wasn't Georgetown talent, but it was damn close and was better than a lot of people realized. He got better named players after that. A couple of guys, one guy who was first team McDonald All-American.
Yeah. That'll do it.
And those guys, they just didn't pan out to the way they should have, given what their recruiting creds were. And so the team went from being very good and always a threat to everybody
Mm-hmm.
to a team that had much higher expectations because they'd won a national championship.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's looking at him. Everybody's looking at him.
And never exceeding expectations.
Right.
The prior 6 years, they always punched over their weight. Probably prior 8 years. By the time it took them a while to get the program going.
Right. It
73.
and I just couldn't help it, but riding my bike the other day, just when we talked on Friday and again today, but it's Hoosiers, right? Rollie comes to this sleepy, very liberal town right outside of Lexington, and it's just, you can see, if you're a fan of the movie Hoosiers, right? You can
Watched it about 2 months ago.
Yeah, you gotta watch it at least once a year.
But the 8th time. So.
Yeah, it's so
a
good.
one.
It's so good. And yeah, I mean, just the way he spoke about Lexington and Jupiter was so fondly. And it was Paul Ash. I'm trying to think of the superintendent's name.
Spire.
Okay. And I guess he was the one that really.
Yeah, he's the one. And he was at the 85 game.
Oh wow! See,
he and
that's awesome.
Farias came down together for that.
Yeah. For that, that's unbelievable.
And a couple of other guys who I didn't recognize.
Yeah, and so it's just when you look at the whole at the end, and now kind of everybody plays. They took away the bleachers and they moved the locker room. They took away the logo. They banned chants, and that the times have changed. But it is sad because there was Coach Sullivan, who won a state title with Gene Newborn in 1979. Very successful coach, Division I, has a knack for turning around teams that had no culture before. He did it in Needham, he did it in Concord, then he did it at Woburn. And then Coach Brinklow, who played on that 88 team, went to Westfield State, scored 1,000 points. But there were two guys. And so one of the saddest things, and you'll see it in this little hour film that we did from this year, a couple of years back, is that sacred connection to Villanova was broke. And the tragedy is kids now don't have that just amazing, legendary kind of history to be a part of. Sure. And lean into. And Danny was like the last one, and you see like Danny got so much out of it, and he went all the way with it. And the basketball program was always, and you said Rollie was very much like this, and it was as much as you wanted to get out of it was available. If you wanted to call their coach and had questions, like the appetite was, the endurance was there. It was truly up to you. And so that the ability to challenge a student, right? And then those kids in that wonderful town of Lexington, where the American Revolution started, don't have that opportunity, because it's like, it's not, Rollie and Villanova and national championships, and it's unbelievable. And most people don't have, that type of an experience. But who would have thought in Little Lexington? But that's for 50 years, that was always the case. So that's the sad part of it. Ronnie Lee said he'd come back if we could find his high school girlfriend. We found her. We didn't know she was a movie star. She was the girl, the prostitute in Risky Business.
It's unbelievable.
We couldn't believe it. He said, no
Oh
wonder he said he'd come back if he could find her. She's a huge Republican. I don't know if that'll flow with him. I'm not sure. We haven't asked him.
Isn't that funny?
So when she worked at like the Playboy Bunny like lounge in the 70s, and my Uncle Van had sent a picture because Ronnie Lee he was trying to find her but couldn't. And so I was like, we'll find her. And my Uncle Van sent her this picture. She had Facebook where, she was dressed up as like a Playboy Bunny cocktail waitress. It was like, hey, happy Easter. And then to come to find out, she was an actress in these movies.
Risky. Wow.
Jeez. Ronnie Lee's got actresses there, Division 1A titles. But that must have been fun for you to come back in your college years from Virginia and visit the program.
Oh, it was great. It was, and a lot, a lot of the kids, we played together.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a year younger, or 2 years younger, or 3 years, but we played in the playground together.
How good was Wayne Morrison? Do you remember him playing?
Wayne?
Yeah, he played with Ronnie Lee. I don't know if he's the same year. He played with those Boston Six guys. He went to University of New Hampshire.
I think Wayne was a little too young.
Yeah. He must have been younger than Ronnie Lee then.
Yeah. I mean, Ronnie was kind of the outer edge.
Yeah. And as you said it was Rollie's his parting gift to Lexington.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
With Ronnie Lee.
Ronnie Lee and 2 state championships.
Yeah, that was a good investment.
I mean, God bless Stan Boynton was smart enough to not tinker with the machine. And
Right.
I mean, Stan was a very smart guy. Wouldn't have built a program like Rollie. In fact, I think he went on and went back to Maine and got a coaching job up there. But it didn't last all that long. Didn't have the same success and kind of retired.
But Bob mentioned that it was so much in those 70s that he walked out on top, which is always a great move.
Yeah.
I don't want to coach if I don't have Ronnie Lee. I don't blame him.
Yeah, I agree with him.
That must have been fun, guys. The rule is the bus doesn't leave at 6. The bus leaves when Ron gets here.
Now, if that's the difference between Rollie and Stan.
Oh, I don't think that was the case. I think I was making a joke. I think Stan was pretty old school too.
Yeah.
And Bob very much too. In 1988, he and I was just in junior high, but UMass, one step before the Garden, they lost to City of Lowell, and Coach Ferris had thrown 3 guys off the team that Friday. One kid had just stopped going to school. Another kid got in a fight. The other guy was smoking bananas, as Coach Ferris is called marijuana. He's smoking bananas at the science museum trip. And it was something where he got a lot of backlash for it too. But it was that same mentality where there's just, I need everything. And that's the deal.
Yeah.
So, those are always Rollie, it seems, just with what he did with the college and the profile and really that's such a key decision for kid. I mean, because now I'm old enough where we have our first wave of kids that are 16 now.
Right.
Wonderful basketball players, lacrosse players, but trying to find the perfect fit with the balance of you're going for school, not for sports. Ronnie Lee might have went for sports. I don't care how good you are, right? You're not a Division I scholarship athlete, and you're not a Division II either. And so it's I'm already with my man Goldie down trying to wrap his head around like, don't chase the scholarship with Peter. He's amazing, but tell him to get his board scores up because it's unbelievable how hard it is. Like you said, like you get to college. And it's unbelievable. Every guy is
the quality of
best player you've ever seen. Yeah.
It's really a step up.
So I played at Curry College in Milton, Massachusetts, and my first day there, the coach was like, "Hey, let's play a game of 101 with the free throws." and then we're gonna work out. There's a couple other kids. There's like their first recruiting class, and Milo from New York sets up and he hits 51 straight free throws, and I don't even get a chance to shoot. I'm like, damn,
These
guys
guys
are a little
good.
better now.
These guys are good.
51 in a row. Yeah, he went freshman of the year, but yeah, so that's good stuff. Kevin, man, thank you so much. We're
Thank
gonna reach out to Coach Cormier. I sent you some stuff to watch on the YouTube.
Yeah, I got a number for Paul if you want a number.
Yeah.
Or do you have it?
No, I don't. What is it?
Let me give you I'll give you both his home and cell. And I told him you might call, so he
Cool.
won't be
Awesome.
totally surprised. His cell
Yeah.
His cell is 201-937-8151. And his home number is, he's down on the Cape, 508
Oh, nice. I love the 508.
619-3687.
Where is he on the Cape?
Around Chatham,
Nice.
Dennis Chatham.
He's the example of, talk about a kid from Lexington getting something out of the urban sport of basketball, right? Like Danny got a lot out of it as well. Coach Cormier, I mean, recruited
And basketball was very good to Paul. I mean, Paul worked his butt off, but he made a nice living.
Doing what he loved.
For 50 years, doing what he loved. And
But that recruiting is a beast. On the train going up the mountain 15 times, he doesn't even come.
and you can imagine Paul dictating to his staff everything the Rollie had dictated to him.
Oh, the other thing I wanted you to get on,
working their
to
butt
go
off.
back over one time was Bill Russell. You mentioned Bill Russell tried to buy a house in Lexington.
Yeah, that's my memory.
Yeah. People in town were just talking about it.
Yeah. The year was around 1965.
1965. And then the Celtics. Yeah.
Russell had won.
Like your fifth grade,
By that
sixth,
time,
seventh,
he
eighth,
won
ninth, 10th.
eight championships by that point, I guess.
Idyllic
This was in
childhood. The
Russell's
Celtics were
rookie.
winning championships. Rollie was coaching you basketball. You guys were going deep into the tournament.
Yeah, it was neat. It was neat.
It's the best.
And the
We had
the Red Sox
Len
won
Bias.
in '67. So
Yeah. See that's Celtics for us was horrible. You know, when we were kids in the 80s, elementary school. But Len Bias, it was just 35 years yesterday since Len Bias. And it's also the same date that KG, I think, won it all. But that was, because then Reggie Lewis as well. We had when our power forward died the night he got his license, the Celtics reached out to Coach Farias and invited us to their private plane at Hanscom to make a donation.
wow.
And the picture was in the paper. We were on their plane, and this was 1993, 94. Larry Bird was still playing. He had his own room where he had to lie down because of the back.
Right.
But that's when we saw, the private chefs on the plane. We were like, wow.
Oh my God.
Being an NBA player is banana. Like, we didn't know it was, we knew it was cool. But talk about how that league changed from the 70s, late 70s to just the early 90s. You're talking just a decade, but it was
amazing. And you can go and you can get some Tommy Heinsohn stories about what the league. Well, I'll tell you what the league was like. I played in the Garden.
Yeah.
A playoff game. Celtics were playing Cincinnati.
Wow.
Austin was playing for Cincinnati. I played in the preliminary game.
Mm-hmm.
Rec league kids. This is in 9th grade. An inner city team, and we were the prelim game.
Yeah.
That's how
Lion.
Ricky it was. The nice thing is we get tickets to stay for the real game, and
Awesome.
it was 9,000 people there. I mean, it was 2/3 full. Now it was an early round, and
Yeah.
it beat Cincinnati, but that's the way it was. And yeah,
That was really the height, right around those years of the scholastic basketball experience. And, you know, when you, because those are early rounds, when you're putting those numbers in the Boston Garden,
Yeah.
you know,
well,
even
this wasn't a Lexington team. This was a
Yeah.
ninth grade rec team.
right.
That was the preliminary game for the Boston Celtics
Wow.
in the playoffs.
That's good exposure.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it was so absurd. It was crazy, but it just
You were so close to
the state of the league.
yeah.
In 1963, same year, the average NBA player, average Celtic, because was making $12,500.
Mm.
The average Lexington High School teacher was making $10,000.
Wow, that's the metric of all metrics right there. Because that really, because you always wonder, like, well, yeah, but still, with inflation, was that a lot of money back then? But when you put it side to side, see, so it's berserk. And when we were at Hanscom, we wanted to see, well, first of all, Robert Parrish had just been busted with 2 ounces of marijuana, and he said it was all for personal, and it was all over the news. So we were like so excited to meet the chief.
Yeah. Wow.
And he was great. A lot of bongs in Lexington had the chief on him after that bust. But Reggie Lewis presented, he was the captain, Northeastern, Dunbar, Baltimore guy.
Right.
He presented the check, and he passed away that summer, you know, in August. But we really wanted to see Xavier McDaniel, the X-Man, double guy in college, NBA All-Star. He was their big free agent splash. So we're sitting there, and we're talking to Chris Ford because he's a Villanova guy.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
the connection again. That's why they reached out to us, because again, Rollie, all of this stuff is always Rollie math, right?
Right.
You know, 1993 at the Celtics, Hanscom Air Force Base, boom. With Chris Ford, great guy. Didn't even know he played at Villanova at that time.
Yeah.
Xavier McDaniel pulls up in a black 911 Porsche, girls driving. He gets out of the car. I go, is he gonna come over and say hi to us? And he just waves. And Chris Ford was like, I don't think so, guys. And Xavier McDaniel just walked on the plane.
I don't remember Xavier McDaniel.
Yeah. This is 1994. I mean, so those teams weren't good, you know. And then in the late 90s, they got horrible. At least Bird was still playing. They were broken down as the end of that era. But you know, there's still some magic there and in those moments and everything. But yeah, just incredible stuff. But I'm going to Los Angeles tomorrow, Kev, for 2 weeks with the family.
All right.
California.
Is this job hunting?
Oh yeah, it's part of that too. We talked about I'm in that pivot transition, need the next 20 years to be figured out.
Well, I hope you'll land something big.
Yeah. Well, now that my son is school, he got back to school full time. I mean, now it's the summertime, so it's a little bit, but things are getting back to normal. For a while in Virginia, he was home for all the year, you know, where most of my friends, well, not in Massachusetts, but most of my friends not in Massachusetts or down here, you know, in Texas, Minneapolis, wherever they are, you know, the kids were going back to school this past year. So like, that was crazy, just because he's 5 and the virtual learning doesn't really, like, you really
it's just a total waste.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm glad that things are coming back. We got to connect. We got to go to a ball game. It's amazing.
Let's try to do that. As things open up, I might even get down to DC with some regularity. My office is down there.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
Not that I've been there.
Did you say, have you been down here since college?
Oh
no, you went to Maine for a little bit, you said.
Well, it's been a couple of years. My first job was in New Haven, and then came to DC after
Yeah.
that.
It's so much better. It's close to Boston. It's still East Coast. The winters aren't as bad.
I love it down here.
Yeah, me too.
Baltimore, but for the crime.
Yeah,
Truly a wonderful place.
yeah. No, I love it. Charm City.
Charm City.
It reminds me of Boston.
Excuse me?
It reminds me of Boston. You know, when I go there. There's
Yeah.
aspects that I don't see because I live in Arlington, Virginia. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, you're right there on the Macy Dixon, and it is a
Right.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Subtle differences.
So anyway, let's keep in touch.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Thank you for running that back. I appreciate it.
if I get down there, and I was down there last week, and that was the first time in a year and a half. So I don't know when I'm going to start going with some regularity, but
Yeah, we'll be in touch. I'll resend you my phone number if you don't have it.
yeah, do that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll send it on the email, and then yeah, we'll be in touch. I'll send you this shortly, and then I got some stuff that I sent you to watch. The Rollie, a couple other links for Lexington.
Okay, I'll do that.
All
Thanks.
right, copy. Thanks, Kevin.
Good luck next couple of weeks. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it, bud. Let's see.